do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on a beautiful Thursday. Tonight, we've got the NBA Finals starting up. It's going to be a great weekend. NBA Finals tonight. Game 2 this weekend. I think it's going to be on Sunday. We got the Mash Bash June 7th. We're going to give away tickets to that here in about 15 minutes or so. And here in about 20 minutes, Jared Dubin of LastNightBasketball.com, who does a great job covering the NBA. He's going to join to talk a little bit about Game 1 of the NBA Finals. He's also a Knicks fan, so we'll probably talk a little Coach Tibbs as well. And last night, as I was sitting down doing my prep for today's show, getting you ready or trying to get you ready for Game 1 of the NBA Finals, I have 3 things that I'm going to be looking at, 3 questions for Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. My first question, the first thing that I'm going to be looking for and looking at is, how does Tyrese Halliburton deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder's pressure? And how often does Andrew Nembhard initiate the offense? Because I think that those 2 things are one and the same. Game 5 from that Knicks series lives rent-free in my head, and it just continues to bother me. It's just sitting in the back of my mind. My wife was gone last night doing some different things. So it was just me. And I sat there on the couch, and I tried to watch Breaking Bad, and I tried to watch the Stanley Cup Finals. But just rattling around in the back of my brain was Game 5 against the Knicks, because that was the game that Tyrese Halliburton wasn't very good in. And what did the Knicks do in that game? They dialed up the pressure, and it really impacted him. 8 points on 2 of 7 shooting. He only had 6 assists. Game 3 against the Cavaliers kind of sits in my head a little bit there as well, because that's what the Cavaliers did. They dialed up the pressure, denied him the basketball. Now, to be fair to Tyrese Halliburton, the Knicks did change their defense in that game. So, and then Game 6, they come back. Halliburton's really good, closes the game really well, scores 11 points in that fourth quarter. Was just awesome down the stretch. So they'll be better prepared for the pressure that they're going to face tonight against the Thunder, because they've had 5 days to get ready for it. They know that it's coming. Still, though, you and I have seen how pressure on Tyrese Halliburton can take him out of games. Game 5 against the Knicks is just the most recent example. Game 3 against the Cavaliers, Max Strus face guarding him everywhere he went. And by everywhere he went, I mean the corner, because that's what he did. He just kind of stood in the corner. If he didn't get the ball off of the inbound, then he was just like, all right, I'm going to go stand in the corner, and you guys can play 4-on-4. I'm going to stand here, put my hands in my pockets, and watch you guys really struggle to run good offense. That can't happen in this series. That is exactly what the Oklahoma City Thunder want him to do. They want to remove him from the offense, because Tyrese Halliburton, when he's not involved in the offense, the Pacers just aren't very good. The offense looks clunky. There's not confusion, but there seems to be hesitation. And am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to give the ball back to you? Is this supposed to be a dribble handoff? Am I supposed to shoot this? Is Halliburton open? No, he's still not open. He's still just standing in the corner. What do I do? So he cannot allow for the Oklahoma City Thunder and their pressure on the basketball and off the basketball to take him out of this series. He has to be aggressive all the time. There's only 2 players on this Indiana Pacers roster that I think is going to be able to consistently break this Thunder defense down off the bounce. It's Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. They're the only 2. We'll see flashes from TJ McConnell. I'm sure Mathurin will have a good 3-minute stretch every now and then throughout the series. But for a full 48 minutes, it's going to be a heavy, heavy dose of Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam trying to figure out how to break down the best defense in the NBA. And the biggest way for them to do that is going to be for Tyrese Halliburton to get to the rim. He's been able to go by everyone throughout these playoffs. But he likes to settle for those step-back threes. And there are some nights where I'm like, hey, man, you settle for all of those step back threes. Take 12 of them because they're going in tonight. But there are also nights where I'm like, hey, man, can you maybe never take another three ever again? Because none of them are going in right now. How about we get to the rim? That is what we have to see from him. He has to get to the rim. He has to get downhill. If I am in my living room, frustratingly yelling at the TV, saying drive or get to the rim, it's probably going to result in a Pacers loss. Because when Tyrese Halliburton gets downhill, he is an elite player, and it unlocks every part of his game. So many of his assists come off of his ability to get to the rim, right? Like him going by someone helps, he drops it off or makes a really nice skip pass to the corner. He's also really good at reading the rotations of the defense, because like if you run a screen and roll and they're coming over the screen, then the guy on the nearest shooter has to help, and then there's usually someone in the corner, and he's really good at making that extra pass to the corner while the guy defending the corner shooter is rotating up to take the wing shooter. So that's usually where a lot of his assists come from. But all that starts with him getting to the rim. He's also a really good mid-range shooter, and it's going to be so important for him to use every part of his scoring repertoire in this series. He's got to use the pull-up jumper. He's going to have to knock down threes. He's going to have to get to the rim and probably finish over and under and around Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. He has to do that in this series. And he's going to have to work to be able to do that, both on and off the ball. One of the adjustments we saw the Pacers make in Game 6 was they had Andrew Nembhard initiate more of the offense, and that unlocked a little bit more of Andrew Nembhard's game, 14 points and 8 assists in that closeout game against the Knicks. And, we're probably going to see that a little bit more in the series. If Tyrese Halliburton gives the ball up, he has to work to get it back. It's going to be so important for him to work off the ball. And thankfully, because of where he started his career, he's good at playing off the ball. He's a very talented off-the-ball player. Because when he was drafted by the Kings, that's what he was asked to do. They had De'Aaron Fox on the ball a lot, and they had Tyrese Halliburton working off the basketball. And that is, I think, a very underrated part of this series, because the Pacers are going to play him off the ball from time to time to relieve some pressure off of him. How do those possessions go? How does Andrew Nembhard handle running the offense against a stout Thunder defense? Is Tyrese Halliburton, is he able to get the ball back, or is he is going to be grabbed and held and probably thrown around a little bit by Lou Dort? But can he get it back? How does that part of their offense look? That to me is one of the smaller things in this series that is going to dictate how the Pacers go about breaking down this tough Thunder defense. Andrew Nembhard, he's been really good at initiating offense throughout the playoffs. He hasn't had to do it a ton because the Pacers haven't really faced a high-pressure defense like they're going to in this series, but I'm not really worried about Nembhard initiating offense. He was fine last year against the Boston Celtics, doing it in games 3 and 4 when Tyrese Halliburton was out and injured. So he's going to be fine. He's a good player, right? He's played a lot of point guard in his life. He's going to be entrusted to do a lot of the offensive initiation because they're going to have to move Halliburton off the ball from time to time. And what can happen in those moments is Halliburton just stands in the corner like he did in Game 3 against Cleveland. He's got to work his tail off to get the ball back because just his movement is going to attract attention because he has a tremendous amount of what I call gravity. The Thunder are going to know where he's at 24/7 because Tyrese Halliburton is a 39% career three-point shooter. He's not shooting the ball super great in these playoffs, but he's shooting 47% from three on catch-and-shoot three-point attempts in the playoffs. Okay, so his off-the-dribble stuff, not going in as much. But the catch-and-shoot stuff is still very lethal from Tyrese Halliburton. And that is an important part of his game. During the regular season, he shot 43% off of catch-and-shoot threes. This is a real part of his game that is going to threaten the Oklahoma City Thunder defense, and they know that he's going to be working to get the ball back. Now, look, he's not Steph Curry, but he has a similar effect off the ball that the defense has to know where he is. How does that change the Thunder defense? Obviously, you want Tyrese Halliburton on the ball. That way he can do all of his playmaking stuff. But he's going to have an impact off the ball in this series as well if the Pacers want to come out of it with a win. The other thing in this series, in game one more specifically, that I'm looking at to see if this is going to work in the Pacers' favor or not, can Miles Turner punish small players, and can he hold his own against Chet Holmgren? Andrew Nembhard and Miles Turner, to me, are the two Pacers not named Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam that I'm paying attention to the most tonight and really in this series. Because I think these are the two guys who are going to play big minutes, who can really tilt the series in the Pacers' direction. I touched on Nembhard a little bit with that first question. Now I want to talk about Miles Turner. Are the Thunder going to switch smaller players onto him tonight? I think they will, because I think they're cool with the Pacers running their offense through Miles Turner on the block. And the Pacers are willing to give Miles Turner the basketball when he has a smaller dude on him. Now, the Pacers should not run their offense through Miles Turner on the block, but they should take advantage of that mismatch from time to time if they get it. And I think that they will, because the Thunder are like, cool, we'll put Alex Caruso on Nikola Jokic. I'm sure they'll be fine putting Cason Wallace or Lou Dort or Caruso or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or whoever on Miles Turner. And look, if the Pacers don't go to him, because we've seen them look him off in the post multiple times throughout the regular season and the playoffs, that can't be a frustration thing for him. He's just got to turn around, pull a Mitchell Robinson, shove the smaller defender underneath the basket, and grab an offensive rebound. That is the other part of all this switching. Does that open up opportunities for Miles Turner to do something that he's never been super great at, and that's rebound? More specifically on the offensive glass, because that is going to be an important thing for the Pacers throughout this series. It's also important for him to find a way to not only score when they switch, but to take threes. Because I think the Thunder are going to be fine with Miles Turner taking open threes. Like, they want Miles Turner to take 12 a night. I don't think he's going to take 12 a night. But they're going to be much more concerned with Halliburton coming off those screens than they are Miles Turner. And if that's the case, like, he's got to knock down those catch-and-shoot threes. But he has to be a little more than that in this series. If the Thunder do switch, he's got to be a guy who can score in other ways other than that pick-and-pop, top-of-the-key three-point shot that he loves. He's got to be able to post up and score on smaller players, because getting easy buckets against this Thunder defense is going to be so tough. And him on the block against a 6'2" Lou Dort, or a 6'3" Alex Caruso, or a 6'2" Cason Wallace, who's thinner than this table that I'm currently standing behind, that should be one of the easier buckets that the Pacers can get in this series. Defensively, I just need the dude to survive. I think that when Isaiah Hartenstein is on the floor, he'll be fine. He'll defend him. He'll be pulled into a lot of screen and rolls, but that's fine. Miles Turner is a okay enough screen and roll defender. It's whenever he has to guard Chet Holmgren. That is a very large concern for me, because I don't think he can defend Chet Holmgren. I'm sure that they'll attack him with switches and all those good things. Like, I'll feel much better when he's defending Isaiah Hartenstein. But this series could be decided by his ability to stay on the floor when Isaiah Hartenstein is on the bench. Because Miles Turner is their only real rim protector, which is important because the Thunder scored the rim a lot. They were 9th in the NBA this year in points in the paint during games in the regular season at just over 50 per game. The best player on their team wants to get to the rim. He led the NBA in drives per game. And if Miles Turner is on the bench, the Thunder are going to lick their chops, and they're just going to run to the rim as much as they can. The Pacers need Miles Turner to stay on the floor as much as possible, because he is their best and really only rim protector, right? Because Thomas Bryant, he can't guard Chet, and neither can Tony Bradley. Like, Miles Turner is really the only option. And if he can't do it, then it's going to be a lot more Toppin. I love Obi Toppin. I think that the Pacers will be better offensively in those minutes, but the defense will take a hit because they're going to be smaller. And I think I like the Thunder's small lineup more than I like the Pacers' small lineup, especially if the Thunder are going small with Chet Holmgren at the 5. That spells a lot of issues for the Pacers. So, Miles Turner, can he stay on the floor? That is the question in this series. When we come back, here in about 4 minutes, Jared Dubin of lastnightbasketball.com, he's going to join the show. But before we go to break, pull out that phone. Get ready to dial 317-228-1430 because we are giving away Mash Bash tickets presented by Moondrops Distillery. They are in partnership with Indiana on Tap, and they are excited to present the second annual Mash Bash on Saturday, June 7th from noon to 5 p.m. on the beautiful outdoor property at Moondrops Distillery in Fortville, Indiana. The 2025 events will again feature samples and pours from 20-plus craft breweries, wineries, and distilleries from all over the state. All attendees will receive a tasting cup when they arrive to enjoy as many samples of the estimated 100-plus unique beers, wines, and spirits as they would like. The Don Stuck Band will be headlining the live music during the event from 3:10 to 5 p.m. with openers including Wicked for Play from noon to 1:15 and Neon Daisy from 1:45 to 2:45. There will also be great food available for purchase from multiple vendors. There's going to be yard games and more. This is going to be a party, and you don't want to miss it. Call 317-228-1430 right now for your chance to win tickets. Jared Dubin, when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Progressive knows when you're in your RV, you're already on vacation. That's when you become Vacation You, who just camped where there's absolutely no shade. Even though regular you burns easily. In fact, Vacation You burns too, but is too stubborn to admit it, which is why regular you gets in trouble at the dermatologist because Vacation You doesn't do.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Congratulations to Tim Barnes, who won our first pair of Mash Bash tickets that we gave out in that last break. We're going to give more out in the 11 o'clock hour, so make sure you stay tuned in right here to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Joined now by the one and only Jared Dubin of LastNightInBasketball.com. He does a great job covering the NBA. Jared, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Before we talk about Thunder and Pacers, you are a Knicks fan, so I would like your thoughts on Coach Tibbs getting fired. You there? Sorry, that was a really weird way for me to say that. Like, it sounded like I was going to keep going, and then I just stopped. That's my bad, Jared.
No, it's all right. I accidentally hit the mute button on my phone anyway, so you wouldn't have been able to hear what I was saying.
All right.
I think people get caught up on whether or not someone, quote unquote, deserves to be fired based on the immediate result that most recently happened. Obviously, you see a team lose in the conference finals in 6 games. You're 2 games away really from going to the NBA finals. And if specifically if game 1 of that Knicks Pacers series goes differently, we could be having a much different conversation right now. I think that getting to the conference finals and getting to game 6 of the conference finals is not necessarily representative of how the Knicks played during the playoffs. They had 3 different 20-point comebacks to get 3 of their 10 wins in the playoffs. They went down by double digits in, I believe, 7 games. And that number may even be higher if I'm, misremembering. It was not like they came out and played, incredibly well on their way to the conference finals. So it's somewhat more of a bigger picture conversation than just the specific result of this season. I think that there are a lot of people in New York that will tell you, because they're, I don't know, spoiled, I guess, that Tibbs is not a good coach, doesn't know what he's doing. And I mean, we've seen what bad coaches look like here in New York for a very long time. The Knicks had a lot of bad coaches over the 20 years before they hired Tom Thibodeau 5 years ago. He did really well. He went to the playoffs 4 to 5 years. They won 4 playoff series, which was 4 times as many as they'd won in the previous 20 years before he got hired. They won 50 games back-to-back years for the first time in 30 years. Went to the conference finals for the first time in 25 years. And all of that is, really, really good accomplishments that don't necessarily lead you to think that someone's going to lose their job. At the same time, I think that there are, reasons you can justify it. I think that we've seen a relative level of inflexibility from Tibbs, not just this year, not just during his time with the Knicks, but throughout his career, that could lead one to conclude that, maybe he's not the guy to get the most out of a team with this kind of roster. I think we saw throughout this season that there were some bubbling up issues in the locker room of guys not necessarily being thrilled with their roles or how they were being used or things like that. And, Tibbs is a very good, culture and preparation kind of coach. But if you don't have everything 100% perfect, there are times where, we've seen during his career that things can sort of get stale the longer that he's in that job. And I'm sort of rambling on all these different things. Tibbs is a good coach. He did a good job. It doesn't necessarily seem like the kind of thing where, he quote unquote deserves to lose his job. But sometimes deserve doesn't have a lot to do with it. And it could just be time for a change for one reason or another. And I think specifically with the place the Knicks are in, looking for more theoretical upside is more important than considering what the potential downside is of moving on. Because when you're in the situation they're in with their roster and with how much they push their chips into the middle of the table in terms of their assets, losing in the conference finals is the same thing as losing in the first round or the second round or even in the NBA finals. The result is the same, which is that you didn't accomplish the goal that you're supposed to be accomplishing for the situation that your team is in. So I'm not as concerned about what happens if you take a step backwards next year. To me, the result is the same, and you should be more concerned with trying to get the most upside you can out of the group. And if you think there's a possibility that somebody else out there can give you more upside, whether it be through culture or preparation or in-game tactician or, game-to-game adjustments or things like that, then I think it's justified to be looking to go after that type of guy.
Joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NBA over at Last Night in Basketball.com, also the host of the Double Dribble podcast, talking Coach Tibbs being fired, and then we're going to talk a little Pacers and Thunder. Last thing, I don't necessarily want you to give me a name because I think that's really hard to do, but what kind of coach would you want to see replace Tibbs?
I think just based on the way that things have gone down over the last couple of years, like the big thing for me would be someone who is flexible and open to new ideas and different ideas of the ways to do things and isn't necessarily trying to look for ways to fit guys into their way of doing things, but looks for ways to build around the guys that they have. That seems like the biggest sort of area of not necessarily deficiency, but, inflexibility of what the Tibbs regime was. For me, bit differently than a lot of people, where I don't necessarily have names in mind, and I'm okay if you move on from a coach and you don't have the next guy already zeroed in on and lined up to be your coach. Like, I would just open the process as far and as wide as possible, talk to everybody in the league, talk to everybody in the G League, talk to everybody in college, talk to everybody in Europe or wherever else, and just find the person who has the best plan to get the most out of what your current roster is, or, even the best suggestions for how you could, tweak the roster and what they would do with a little bit of a different kind of roster, and then go and execute that plan.
Joined by Jared Dubin, NBA writer over at Last Night in Basketball.com, talking about now the NBA Finals. I'm so excited for the series, Jared, and I am most specifically, I'm excited for the game tonight because the Thunder haven't seen a team like the Pacers in the playoffs, and the Pacers haven't really seen a team like the Thunder. What unique part of this matchup are you most excited to kind of look at?
Just the amount of movement that I think there's going to be on both sides of the ball. Like, nobody moves with and without the ball offensively more than the Pacers do. That's like proven by the data tracking numbers too. You can find that from Todd Whitehead from Synergy Sports put out something earlier in the week about how much the Pacers move with their players and the ball on different possessions, and they're so far ahead of everybody else in the league. And then the Thunder are, one of the most swarming defenses that we've seen in the last 25, 30 years. Just the amount of arms and limbs and bodies that they have moving around at all times. It's going to be so fascinating to watch those two units go up against each other.
It is. I can't wait to watch this Pacers offense against this Thunder defense for all the reasons that you said, but also because I think this is the most important part of the game for the Pacers in terms of the turnover aspect. This is something everyone's been harping on. During the regular season and their two matchups, and the regular season and the playoffs are completely different, but this is really the only data we have to go off of. The Pacers only turned the ball over 11 times in each of those two matchups. That seems like a pretty good number to me. What is the number that would be too many turnovers for the Pacers to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, if you get to 15 turnovers, you're essentially drawing dead against the Thunder. If you get to 20, you're really drawing dead. They went 20-2 during the regular season when they forced 20 or more turnovers. I think they were 51-10 when they forced 15 or more turnovers. They're another, I believe, 3-0 in the playoffs with 20 or more, and I think 7 or 8-3 when they forced 15 or more. If you're getting into that range just because of how well they can make you play on the other end and how difficult it is to score against their half-court defense, there's just really no hope for you to win a game when you get into that range.
Joined by Jared Dubin of Last Night in Basketball.com. He's got a great article up over on his site previewing this Thunder and Pacers series. If you want good in-depth analysis, that is the article for you. You can find it. He's got it pinned at the top of his profile on Twitter at JADubin5. The other thing that I'm really intrigued from this Pacers offense is just the amount of pressure that the Thunder like to put on teams. I think we're going to see a lot of Andrew Nembhard on the ball more than normal, maybe not a lot of. I think we're going to see a little more of Andrew Nembhard initiating offense just to kind of give Halliburton a break. I think those possessions are going to be really important. What is kind of your idea on how the Pacers are going to try to combat that Thunder pressure and the idea of Halliburton playing off the ball? How important are those possessions going to be?
Yeah, I mean, every possession is of the utmost importance against this Thunder defense. Like, the idea that you're going to be able to score super efficiently against them is just, it's I don't want to say it's outside the realm of possibility because teams have done it before. It took Nikola Jokic a few games to figure it out, though. And, if there's anybody that's in the league with, being able to manipulate the court in the same way that Tyrese Halliburton does, obviously Nikola Jokic does it at an even higher level. It's a little bit different, obviously, when it's a guard who's got to bring the ball up all the time and can, be made to waste a little bit more energy than it is with a center where, somebody else is going to bring the ball up the floor more often than not, and you're going to get him the ball, and then he can sort of do his thing in the half court. Tyrese may have to waste a bunch of energy, and obviously we've seen at times when Halliburton is not at his most aggressive, the Pacers offense can get going side to side rather than downhill. And if that happens to you against the Thunder, again, you're basically drawing dead. So it's going to be up to him in large part to be super aggressive and to be pushing them in forward motion at all times. And on the possessions where he's not the one initiating the offense, then, Nembhard and TJ McConnell and Pascal Siakam, they really have to make sure that they're attacking downhill at all times. But the thing is, when you do that, you subject yourself to all of the strips and swipes and dig downs and everything that the Thunder present on drives. And it's so hard to be able to strike the balance of being aggressive enough to actually puncture their defense and be able to create scoring chances, while at the same time being careful enough with the ball that you don't get it taken away, because if you're not like just picture perfect in everything you do about your execution, they will make you pay.
They will. And I'm so glad you brought up their ability to come down and strip dudes, because there's a lot of conversation around Halliburton and his ability to not turn it over against this Thunder defense that turns everyone over. I am so concerned about Pascal Siakam isolating and trying to get to the rim because his handle's a little loose. And just thinking back to that Wolves series against the Thunder, it felt like every time Julius Randle dribbled the ball 4 times, like the Thunder just took it from him. And Siakam can have similar possessions to Julius Randle where he's isolating in the mid post and he probably dribbles a little bit too much. Like, how I know you talked about in that last answer how tough it is to kind of find that balance, but how concerned are you about Pascal Siakam when he's isolated in the mid post?
I'm not necessarily any more concerned specifically about that situation than I am about any other situation against the Thunder defense. Like, if you clear out the entire side, it's a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it's, it's less difficult to navigate the thicket of limbs just because there's not going to be a helper as often on that side, but they'll come and throw a helper at you from out of nowhere anyway. And once you get, a foot near the paint, there's going to be someone swiping down on your drive, and there's going to be someone darting into the passing lane that you think is open because they did. Passing lanes will vanish like faster than you can see them open. And when you put the ball on the deck, like your head cannot be down for even, a split second, because if it is, then someone's going to come and reach in and take the ball away from you. Like, there are no breaks. You have to be at this, like, your offense has to be all full throttle all the time while somehow remaining in control enough to not sort of lose the skids at the same time. Like, it's really hard to describe how difficult it is to score against this defense, no matter how talented of an offensive team or offensive player you are, just because of the different amounts of challenges that they present and how disciplined they are in executing everything that they want to do defensively. And they present so many different challenges at each level of the defense. Like, just dribbling near, Lou Dort or Alex Caruso or Cason Wallace is so difficult. Like, just being able to keep the ball in those situations. even if you get by one of those guys, you're running into help from everywhere. And you're running into players swiping at your dribble or darting in and out of passing lanes as you're making your way through that first layer of defense. Jalen Williams is going to be there to help. Dort's going to be there to help. Caruso and Wallace are going to be there to help. You know, Aaron Wiggins is going to be there to help. And then if you somehow manage to make it all the way to the rim, which is more difficult to do against the Thunder than it is against any team in the league, they force their opponents to take shots from outside the paint. They reduce the amount of paint shots that everybody can take. If you somehow manage to get there, you're going up against two of like the 5 or 6 best rim protectors in the league, in Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. It's hard to describe how difficult it is.
It's exactly what you said. It is impossible. Like I like the way that you said it. Like every layer of the Thunder defense, there's just a new problem. Whether it's Caruso or Dort or whoever on the ball pressuring you, whether it's Chet Holmgren or Hartenstein at the rim, like it's just like you said, like it's impossible to really kind of put into words how good this Thunder defense is. Joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NBA over at Last Night in Basketball.com. He's got a great series preview between the Thunder and the Pacers that you should definitely go and read. I want to flip it now and kind of talk about this Thunder offense against this Pacers defense, because I think that the Pacers defense is very underrated. Like when you look at the last 57 games of their regular season, they were 6th in defensive rating. And I think part of that is just how much they pressure teams as well. How do you think the Thunder go about dealing with the full court pressure and these higher pickup points that they're going to face in this series?
Yeah, that's definitely something that you need to watch out for. The Thunder have been pressured less than almost any team in the playoffs so far. They've been picked up lower on the court than any team except for the Pistons. And the Pistons' only series was against the Knicks, who famously don't pick up anybody really high on the court. And the one time they did in Game 5, it sort of threw the Pacers' offense off because they were, relatively unprepared for it to happen because the Knicks had never done it before. Nobody has really pressured the Thunder, and I think with some pretty good reason. They have so many ball handlers that can bring the ball up the court that it's not necessarily worth like, hey, we're going to put pressure on Shea 94 feet from the rim and make him work hard. Like, so they'll just have Jalen Williams bring the ball up the court, or they'll just have Caruso or Wallace bring the ball up the court, and it doesn't really matter all that much to them. Now, granted, you can make those guys work hard too, but it's not as much of an effect as it is against a team, like the Bucks, where Damian Lillard was out there the first for one game, I think, or 2 games or whatever it was before he had his unfortunate injury. And then obviously last year when they were doing it to Damian Lillard, he was dealing with an injury throughout that series. We saw against the Knicks, a lot of times it's just Jalen Brunson bringing the ball up the court and make him work super hard bringing it up. And if it's not him, then it's Josh Hart, who they're not really going to have initiate the offense anyway. And you can make things much more difficult for those teams than you can for a team like the Thunder, who have so many different ways to initiate the offense. You also don't want to let the Thunder get out into the open court because they're just as good in that area as the Pacers are. If there's any team in the league that is able to say that, it's the Thunder. And we saw specifically in the series against Minnesota that it was actually better when the Wolves set their defense lower on the court than when they set it higher, because they were able to do a better job of not necessarily choking off, but giving less access to the driving lanes that really make the Thunder offense go, just because there is less space to cover when you try to send help against some of those drives. And the more space you have to cover, the less likely you are, obviously, to be able to present help that actually affects the guy with the ball in his hands. The Pacers, I would imagine, they're still going to pressure. It might not be as consistent as it was in some of these other series where they're doing it, 40-something times a game. Might be a little less often than that. It might be a little more on and off than it has been in previous series. And it might be, they'll do it against certain guys, not against other guys. I think a lot of this is going to depend on how healthy Aaron Nesmith is. Obviously, he'll have a little more than a week coming off the ankle injury that he suffered against the Knicks. Didn't look like himself in Game 5. Early in Game 6, gets in foul trouble, and they switch Nembhard onto Brunson, which works out really well for them. I think that Shea is a much more difficult matchup for Nembhard than Brunson is, just because Shea is 6'6" and releases the ball from so high. And while, Brunson has similar strength to Shea, he doesn't have the same size. And that makes it a little more difficult for a guy in that March size. Neesmith's going to need to be really healthy. Ben Shepherd is going to need to be, as on his game as he's ever been. And the physicality could be a little bit of a challenge for him there too. And it's the idea of being of handling him not just in the half court but a full court is so daunting. And if you provide not additional driving lanes, but even slightly wider driving lanes by not being able to fully set your defense in the half court because you're so far up the floor, similar to how there are certain things that are death sentences against Oklahoma City's defense. If you give Shea half a foot more space than you might have otherwise, that's a death sentence against Oklahoma City's offense too.
Okay. Great analysis here from Jared Dubin. You can read his full breakdown of the series over at last night in basketball.com. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just, he's just a problem. But he's a problem for everybody. And I'm actually, and look, Jared, this is why I could never coach, because I had this idea. And I'm sure if I pitched it to Coach Carlisle or any other NBA coach, they'd be like, Jonathan, you can't do that for all of these reasons. But I think the one common theme in all of the very few Thunder losses in this postseason is Jalen Williams wasn't very good. And I don't even know if the Pacers have the right guys to really defend him either. But do you think that is there any chance that we see the Pacers maybe tilt their defense a little bit more towards stopping Jalen Williams? Because that if he struggles, even if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander plays great, like your chances of winning probably go up a little bit.
I think that the times where he's struggled has not necessarily been because teams have tilted their defense towards him. It's because he's just struggled with his shot, or struggled to, uncharacteristically, I should say, struggled to finish at the rim. And it's been more about teams trying to turn the Thunder into the Thunder offense into a 3-point shooting contest. And we're going to, fully load up against Shea and let, Lou Dort and J-Dub and Chet and Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe and Caruso and Cason Wallace and whoever else fire away from three and live with the results. Obviously, that's all easier said than done, and we've seen how that can look when those guys make their shots. But to me, it hasn't necessarily been about tilting the defense, away from Shea and letting him get his own. It's an interesting concept, and could it work? In theory, sure. Anything can work in theory. It has to actually work in practice, and it's easier said than done, obviously.
It is. Once again, joined by Jared Dubin of last night in basketball.com. Two more questions for you, Jared, and I will let you go. Oklahoma City, they've got so many options. They can play big with two bigs. I feel like we've seen the Pacers have a decent amount of success in these playoffs against two big lineups. I'm expecting for us to see a lot of Oklahoma City playing with Chet Holmgren at the 5. Is that what you expect in this series, or do you think that they'll go big or bigger?
Yeah, I think that they'll at least start with their usual starting lineup with the two bigs next to each other in the front court and see how that goes for them. But they spend, a significant amount of time playing, with just one or the other out there in terms of Holmgren and Hartenstein. And they'll even spend time out there with, J-Dub as the center if the opponent is playing small enough. If there are minutes with Obi Toppin at center, I would not at all be surprised to see J-Dub at center against some of those looks. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I think you'll see plenty of all of those different alignments, and it's just going to be about what's working at any particular time, because the key to the Thunder is that they can play any way against you that they have to at any given time. You'll see, Hartenstein's going to start these games, what we've seen throughout the playoffs. They'll come out for the second half with Alex Caruso or Cason Wallace or Isaiah Joe or somebody else starting if they think that that's what's best for the rest of the game, and it's no problem for them. Hartenstein takes it. Sometimes I can't imagine that it's going to be anyone else coming off the bench. It's usually that's the move that they make, but they'll do it no problem.
Joined by Jared Dubin talking Thunder and Pacers tonight. Last thing for you, Jared. Who's the most important role player for the Pacers in this series?
I mean, I think it's Aaron Nesmith. Like, if you don't have the size and strength to go up against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's just like as good as the Thunder's defense is, if you can't throw, kinks into their offense, like it's just going to be super difficult for you. You have to find a way to make their offense slightly less efficient than normal. And the Pacers' best chance of that is with Nesmith on SGA. As difficult as that's going to be, and as unlikely as it is that you're even going to be able to like make him less efficient, he's the guy with the best chance to do it.
I agree. If you put him on SGA, I just don't know who you put on Jalen Williams then.
Yeah, I mean that's the conundrum that these guys present.
But
yeah,
we'll see.
Like, maybe Nembhard gets a chance, maybe Siakam gets a chance. Maybe you have to get a little bit more creative with the matchups. And if there's anybody that's going to get creative, it's Rick Carlisle. Yeah. He's going to leave no stone unturned. I'd imagine we'll see some of the zone defense that worked well for Denver in the second round. But the same way I cautioned before the Minnesota series, that just because a defense is better than another doesn't mean that they're going to be able to execute the same strategy at the same or higher level. Yeah. Denver was not nearly as good a defensive team as Minnesota, but the Nuggets zone was very effective at times against Oklahoma City, and the Timberwolves zone got completely torn apart. It's all about, the guys on the floor actually executing the plan. And, I think the Pacers have pretty good personnel to try that at different times. But like I said, everything works in theory, and it's got to actually work in practice.
Totally agree. Jared, thank you for your time. As always, I always appreciate how prepared and how in-depth you're able to go. Make sure you go read all of his stuff over at lastnightinbasketball.com. I'm assuming you've got the Thunder in like 5 or 6 games. That's what everyone seems to have.
Yeah, I've got the Thunder in 5 games. They're just too good, man. It's not anything really having to do with the Pacers, who, I've been consistent, are a very good team, and people sort of underestimated, including myself, when I couldn't really decide whether I wanted to take the Pacers in 6 or the Knicks in 7 in the previous series. It's just Oklahoma City's a different beast, man. Fifth most wins of all time, best point differential of all time. If they hadn't, sort of blown a stupid game in game 1 against the Nuggets, they would have basically been romping through these playoffs. It's just, when I look for reasons to pick I have to search for reasons to pick the Pacers to find reasons for them that they're going to win games. You don't have to search that hard for reasons that the Thunder are going to win games, just because of how good they are on both sides of the ball and how many different, answers they have to the questions that another team poses, and then how many different questions they're able to pose for the other team.
Totally agree. I took the Thunder in 6 just because of everything you said. They're just too good. They just are. Jared, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Jared Dubin, check him out on Twitter at JADubin5. Make sure you check out his website as well, lastnightinbasketball.com. When we come back here in about 3 minutes, more thoughts on Pacers and Thunder.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow and watch the show there. And you can always listen on that Indy's Sports Ticket app. Coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, we're giving away more tickets to this year's MASH Bash. Trust me, you want tickets. They're VIP tickets. It's going to be a blast. Trust me, you want to go. Now, I have one final question for tonight's game. This is what I opened with, and then we had Jared Dubin on, so I didn't get to my final question for tonight's game. How do the Pacers go about defending Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams? This is, to me, the most important aspect of the game. The Pacers are going to score the basketball because they're just that good offensively. Can they get enough stops? That is my biggest concern in this series. How do they go about slowing down the league MVP and Jalen Williams, the guy who was second team All-NBA? And the fact that Rick Carlisle put together a defense in 2011 that slowed down Chris Bosh, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade in the NBA Finals makes me feel pretty good about his ability to do it again against what I would argue three lesser players than those three, and Chet Holmgren, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Jalen Williams. I just don't know how he's going to do it. Is he going to double one? Is he going to sag the defense in and get late contests on shooters? Are they going to try to force the ball out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's hands and make everyone else make a play? I don't know. But I do think that the defense is where we're going to see Coach Carlisle's biggest impact. I believe that the offense will figure itself out. There's just too much shooting and athleticism for the Pacers to not score. Like I think they're going to have answers offensively for whatever the Thunder throw at them. The defense, that is the concerning part. Okay, the Pacers are probably going to play zone at some point during the series. They played the 11th most zone of any NBA team during the regular season. The Nuggets threw some zone at the Thunder during their series. It gave the Thunder some issues early in the series, but the Thunder figured it out later. So I do think we're going to see some zone from the Pacers, and I'll be interested to see how they help whoever is defending Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Are they going to stay at home? Or are they going to make the Lou Dorts and Alex Caruso's of the world beat them? I don't know. We'll see. Can't wait to figure out what they're going to do tonight. When we come back at 11 o'clock, I'm going to tell you who's going to win tonight.
Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. You missed some fantastic radio earlier with Jared Dubin joining the show, breaking down Pacers Thunder, the NBA Finals, which starts tonight. Who wins the game tonight? Who's winning tonight? I think the answer to that question is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I do think the Pacers cover that 9-point spread, though. I'm so interested to see how each team reacts and plans for the opposing team's style. Because I do think both teams are very unique. The Thunder are very unique in how they defend. The Pacers, very unique in how they run offense and how they guard you full court. Okay, the Thunder haven't really faced an offense like this, right? The Grizzlies ran their offense through John Morant, and then John Morant got hurt, and they're like, all right, we'll run it through Desmond Bane. The Nuggets obviously ran all their offense through Nikola Jokic, and the minutes he was off the floor, their offense was bad. The Timberwolves ran their offense through Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. It didn't go very well. They lost in 5 games. Obviously, the Pacers run their offense through Tyrese Halliburton, but everyone's involved. You know, he doesn't pound the air out of the rock like the main players on those other teams can do at different times, right? They move the ball a ton. The, player tracking data says that the Pacers move more on offense than any other team in the NBA. Like, it's not just high ball screen, then we figure it out. That'll be an adjustment for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're actually going to have to defend plays and sets. Whew, amazing. They haven't seen, the Thunder, haven't seen a team that pressures the basketball the way that the Pacers do. How do they deal with that? Now, look, they have capable guards who can dribble the basketball up and down the floor and all that kind of stuff. They don't have a real point guard, though. And we have seen the Thunder take teams out of their offensive rhythm because they don't have a real point guard. And I'll be very interested to see if the Pacers can do that tonight or throughout the series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because, yes, as Jared Dubin said earlier, they have plenty of guys who handle the basketball well enough to bring it up the floor. But do they have guys who handle it well enough to bring the ball up the floor and then set the offense? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he brings the ball up the majority of the time, and he can do that. Very nice handle. And he is their offense a lot of the time. But if I'm playing the Thunder, I'm totally fine with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander bringing the basketball up the floor and then not passing it once. And they're also just not used to it. They've been pressured the least amount of all the teams in the NBA this season. And part of that is because they have a multitude of guys who can bring the basketball up the floor. I don't think that's going to matter to the Pacers. They are going to pressure whoever brings the ball up the floor for the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, and I can't wait to see how that goes. For the Pacers, they definitely haven't seen a defense like this. They haven't played a defensive-oriented team all playoffs. The Bucks didn't have a stout defense in that first round. The Cavaliers, their defense was good, but they were known for having the best offense in the NBA. The Knicks were an offensive-minded team with a slightly above-average defense. This is the first time the Pacers are playing a team that really pride themselves on their defense more than their offense. This is also the first time they're playing a team that has a good defensive option for Tyrese Halliburton. The Bucks definitely didn't. Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, come on now. Max Strus for the Cavaliers, big dude, but couldn't stay in front of Halliburton. Ty Jerome, really good defender, couldn't stay in front of Tyrese Halliburton. It was problematic. Mikal Bridges didn't bother Tyrese Halliburton at all in that Knicks series, except for Game 5 when he picked him up further up the floor, but I think that was more of a surprise thing than an impact thing. Now, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, and Cason Wallace are going to bother Tyrese Halliburton. Cason Wallace is so good at getting underneath ball handlers. Like, if you remember when Dirk Nowitzki played, teams would just crowd him and get underneath his elbows. Cason Wallace does that to point guards. It's really impressive watching that guy play defense. Alex Caruso can do the same thing. Lou Dort is just big and bulky, and he's going to bump and chuck and push all night long. So, how does Tyrese Halliburton deal with that. They also, the Oklahoma City Thunder, don't have a defensive player that can be picked on. Like against the Bucks, the Pacers could get Brook Lopez in a switch. They could get AJ Green in a switch, and they could kind of attack them. They could get a smaller guy like Damian Lillard matched up on Pascal Siakam, and then they could go at Damian Lillard. Against the Cavaliers, they could pick on Darius Garland. They could get Donovan Mitchell or someone like that matched up on Pascal Siakam in the post. The number of times they got Jared Allen switched onto Tyrese Halliburton, and Halliburton either scored or led to someone else scoring is a lot. That's a lot. Against the Knicks, they ran all of their offense directly at Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. And when one of them was on the bench, they just ran their offense at the other guy relentlessly. The Thunder don't really have a good option for that. They don't. Like when Isaiah Hartenstein's on the floor, like they'll probably target him a little bit, try to get him switched onto Tyrese Halliburton, see if he can break him down. But the issue is if you go by him, Chet Holmgren's probably at the rim. The Pacers will have to figure that out. They'll probably target Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well, but like that's not by choice. That's just, like something that it's just like a process of elimination. And the idea of picking on or picking at Isaiah Hartenstein or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on offense is like, it's like clogging the toilet at your girlfriend's house early on in your relationship. Like you can either leave it and hope that they don't discover it until after you leave, but when they discover it, that they're going to talk about you. And then the next time you see them, it's going to be awkward. Or you could tell them, and that's also very embarrassing. Both options are terrible. But given the situation, depending on who you are, one option is probably better than the other for some reason unique to you. It's a terrible option either way, going as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Isaiah Hartenstein. But those are really your only options. They could also go at guys like Jalen Williams, Jaylin, the center out of Arkansas, if he even plays. He may not even play. They could go at Kenrich Williams if he even plays. But if either one of them plays, it won't be for more than 10 minutes. They are not going to have a consistent option to pick on defensively because everyone else for the Thunder can guard. I can't wait to see that battle on that end of the floor. This is truly the best offense in the NBA taking on the best defense in the NBA. And it's going to be a lot of fun because the Thunder, they have stopped or slowed down every team that they have played. And the Pacers have torn apart every defense that they have played. Something has to give, I guess. I think we're really just going to see stretches where the Pacers are scoring a bunch of points, and then we'll see stretches where the Thunder make like a slight tweak, and all of a sudden the Thunder are getting stops. And then we're going to see Carlisle and Halliburton make a slight tweak, and then they'll start scoring again. There's just going to be this constant ebb and flow of scoring and not scoring as these two teams make adjustments throughout the night. That end of the floor, as just like a simple basketball fan, is going to be an absolute joy to watch. And I expect for the Stars in this series to be good. Like I expect for Halliburton to be as aggressive as he's ever been. He seems like a guy who wants to attack the moment. And so I expect him to be really good in this series. I expect Pascal Siakam, a guy who's been here before, I expect him to be really good in this series. I expect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to play well. I expect for Jalen Williams to play well. The question is going to be everybody else. Does Chet Holmgren consistently knock down threes? Because he'll have series where he really struggles to make threes. Will Aaron Nesmith be healthy? Will he be able to defend Jalen Williams or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Right? Like the other guys, who is going to be the most impactful? That is the question. Now, for me, the most important role player for the Pacers in this series is going to be Andrew Nembhard. I think he has to be the Pacers' third best player. Defensively, he's going to have his hands full, right? He's going to defend Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, like he is. Like that's obviously going to be a very important part of this series. It's going to be very important for him to figure out how to stop the second best offensive player in the league, the best scorer in the league. I guess that's going to be tough. Offensively, though, is where I think we're really going to see his importance, because I don't really think it matters what he does defensively. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's going to score because he is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Offensively, he is going to be asked to carry a little bit more of the load, and he can do that. He just has to be good while doing it. And I've got a pretty decent amount of confidence in him and in his ability to kind of carry the offense against this Thunder defense, because he did a really good job of it against the Thunder in the regular season, right? In the first meeting, he goes for 23 points and 7 assists. That's a really good Andrew Nembhard game. Second meeting, he goes for 16 points and 7 assists, and he had 3 turnovers combined between the 2 games. If he's that good, averages somewhere around like 17 points and like 6 assists. So let's say his numbers come down a little bit. That's fine. If he's that good, he will give the Pacers a chance to win, because that the Thunder are going to do everything they can to not allow Tyrese Halliburton to have the basketball. And on those possessions, Andrew Nembhard has to be good at running the offense and creating opportunities not only for himself, but also for his teammates. Another important aspect of this series that I didn't really want to talk about, but it needs to be discussed. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to foul bait. He's going to get fouled. He's going to throw his head back, and it's going to be really annoying, and it's going to be frustrating. With that being said, it may not be, because we've had to sit back and watch, the Pacers play Jalen Brunson, who just never turns it off. He's, all just throwing his head back all the time. Looks like he's at a rock concert, just with all the head nodding that guy does. Now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's going to do that. It'll be annoying, but nowhere near as bad as it has been, taking on Brunson. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander really only does that when he really gets fouled and he wants to sell it. Jalen Brunson does it when he doesn't get fouled. It's really annoying. Anyway, the Pacers have to keep that guy off the foul line. It is so incredibly important, because that's a dude who will take 20 free throws in a game if you let him. Okay, he's going to get to the rim consistently, and it's going to be really annoying to deal with. And, if the Pacers are sitting back and they're just fouling him left and right, that's going to be very problematic. It is. It's going to be very problematic for them. And they have to make sure that they keep him off of that foul line. So coming up here in this break, get your phone out, because we're about to give away more tickets for the Moondrops Distillery Mash Bash coming up on Saturday, June 7th. 2 VIP tickets while you're pulling out your phone, getting ready to dial 317-228-1430. Let me tell you right now that Indy Sports Ticket is on Teddy Bear Patrol throughout the month of June. We're going to be collecting teddy bears that our local area law enforcement agencies can give out to children involved in accidents and other traumatic situations. I've got one. This is a great cause. Please check out IndySportsTicket.com for a link to donate or drop off your new teddy bear donations at our studios or at Hensley's legal offices in Fishers. This Saturday, we're hosting a kickoff event at Hensley Legal from noon to 2. Come out, bring a bear, and play some games. And after that, head over to the Mash Bash, which is going to be a great time. Moondrops Distillery, in partnership with Indiana on Tap, is excited to present the second annual Mash Bash Saturday, June 7th from noon to 5 p.m. at Moondrops Distillery in Fortville. The event will again feature some samples and pours from 20 different craft breweries, wineries, and distilleries from all over the state of Indiana. All attendees will receive a tasting cup when they arrive to enjoy as many samples of the estimated 100-plus unique beers, wines, and spirits as they would like, while also meeting and getting to know these breweries, wineries, distilleries, and their own unique stories along the way. There's going to be live music. There's going to be great food. You don't want to miss it. There's going to be yard games, cornhole. Show up. I would love to beat you in cornhole. I think that would be fun. It's going to be an outstanding party. Call the number 317-228-1430 for your chance to win not one, but 2 VIP tickets to Mash Bash this Saturday. It's going to be a blast. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. And you know what'll make it even better? If you get to go for free. because anything free immediately makes everything better. Call the number 317-228-1430 for your chance to win 2 VIP tickets to Moondrop Smash Bash. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, 3 questions about Game 1 of the NBA Finals.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, hop in the chat to be part of the conversation. Maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Maybe you're watching the show over on X or Twitter. You can follow me there at __ Jonathan Smith, and you can watch the stream there as well. Now, NBA Finals Game 1 tonight. I've got 3 questions, 3 things that I'm very intrigued to see how each team kind of comes out and defends or plays. And the biggest thing, I think, for the Pacers is how does Tyrese Haliburton deal with Oklahoma City's ball pressure, and how often does Andrew Nembhard initiate the offense for the Pacers just to relieve Haliburton of that burden from time to time. Now, Game 5 against the Knicks was alarming. It's still bothering me. It's just kind of sitting in the back of my mind because I think that game's really important. That was obviously the game where Tyrese Haliburton wasn't very good. It's a very nice way to say it. And the Knicks dialed up the pressure, and Haliburton really struggled. 8 points, only took 7 shots, only had 6 assists. He just wasn't really his normal self. And to be fair, the Knicks did change their defense in that game. You know, like they really ramped up the pressure, and that's something that they hadn't done really all season. And the Pacers will undoubtedly be better prepared for the Thunder pressure because, you know, they know that it's coming. They've had 5 days to get ready for it. They'll be very well prepared for that pressure. But still, like you and I have seen how pressure on Tyrese Haliburton can take him out of games. The Game 5 against the Knicks was an example of it. Game 3 against the Cavaliers. Max Strus face guarding him everywhere he went, gave him issues. And by issues, I mean he just kind of went and stood in the corner and just kind of stared. I was like, all right, you guys go play 4-on-4. Let me just stand over here in the corner. That can't happen in this series. He has to be aggressive all the time. He and Siakam are the only 2 players on the Pacers that will be able to consistently break this Thunder defense down off the dribble. So Haliburton has to get to the rim. That guy can go by anyone. Okay, he can, but he loves to settle for those step-back threes. He cannot do that in this series. He has got to get 2 feet in the paint, use that floater that's really good, and finish at the rim because he's really good at finishing at the rim. Okay, when he's getting downhill, the dude is elite, and it unlocks every part of his game. So many of his assists come off of his ability to get to the rim. Okay, because obviously when you get there, the defense collapses. You know, spacing starts at the rim, right? That is a cliche statement that is very true. And so in order for the Pacers and all this shooting around Haliburton to be fully effective, he's got to get to the cup. All right, and I think like he's going to be able to. Question is, like, how does it go when he gets there? Because he's going to be met by Isaiah Hartenstein and or Chet Holmgren. And those are not easy guys to finish over or around or under. And they both do a really good job of just not fouling. So because of that, I do expect to see a little bit more of his mid-range game. And we should. He's got such a good pull-up game from, 17 feet. It's really good. Okay. And he has to use every part of his game in this series. Okay. Like he has to average 20 and 10 at a minimum for the Pacers to have a chance. Like he could average 20 and 10 and the Pacers could still lose. That wouldn't surprise me either. But in order for them to have a chance, he's got to be somewhere around 20 and 10 every night, right? He's going to have to do his work on and off the ball as well. I do think one of the adjustments that we're going to see in this series, because we saw it in Game 6 against the Knicks, was they had Andrew Nembhard initiate more of the offense. So if Tyrese Haliburton gives the ball up, can he get it back? Is he going to do the proper work to get the ball back? It's going to be so important for him to work off the ball, not just because the Pacers' offense is at its best when he has the basketball, but also because he's a threat off the basketball, and he's good at playing off the ball. Right? He was asked to do a lot of that when he was playing for the Sacramento Kings when he first got drafted because the Kings opted to have De'Aaron Fox handle the basketball more than Tyrese Halliburton. And obviously, when we think about Halliburton as a pacer, we think about his ability to, shoot the three and everything he does with the ball in his hands. But he's really good off the ball as well. It is a very underrated part of his game, and I think it's a very underrated part of this series because the Pacers are going to put the ball in Andrew Nembhard's hands and have Halliburton play off the ball just to relieve some of that pressure off of him. How do those possessions go? How does Andrew Nembhard handle running the offense against this stout Thunder defense? Is Tyrese Halliburton able to get the ball back? Right? Those are some of the smaller things in this series that I think are going to dictate how the Pacers go about breaking down this tough Thunder defense. Andrew Nembhard has to be good at initiating the offense, which I'm not super worried about, right? Because he's a good player who played point guard through 4 years of college, a guy who's been entrusted, to run the offense at times with Halliburton off the floor. So he'll be fine. Okay. Tyrese Halliburton, though, does he work his tail off to get the ball back? Or does he just stand in the corner? I'm assuming since it's the finals, he's going to work really hard to get the ball back. And that's important because he has a tremendous amount of gravity. That's what I call it. You have to know where he is at all times because of his ability to shoot the basketball. Tyrese Halliburton is a 39% career three-point shooter, right? He hadn't shot the ball that well so far in these playoffs, but, he's shooting 47% on catch and shoot threes in the playoffs, that's a really high number. During the regular season, he shot 43% off of catch and shoot threes during the regular season. So, he is an elite catch and shoot guy from three. And the Thunder know that. So when he's off the ball, that's someone that they're going to have to be fully dialed into. Because if they're not, Halliburton can hurt you running off the screen, catching, turning, and lighting you up from three. So, look, he's not Steph Curry, obviously, but he has a similar impact off the ball. The defense has to know where he is. How does that change the Thunder defense? Obviously, you want Halliburton on the ball because that's when he's at his best, and that's when the Pacers offense is at its best. But he's also going to have an impact off the ball during the series as well. What does that look like, and how effective is it? The other thing that I want to see tonight, can Miles Turner punish smaller defenders if and when the Oklahoma City Thunder switch? And can he defend Chet Holmgren? Andrew Nembhard and Miles Turner are the two Pacers not named Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam that I am fully locked into in this series. I called Andrew Nembhard earlier the most important role player for the Pacers in this series. I think those are the two guys who can really tilt the series. I touched on Nembhard a little bit with that first question. How does he go about initiating the offense? Is he comfortable? Can he avoid turning the basketball over? He did during the regular season. He was really good against the Thunder during the regular season. 23 points and 7 assists in the first game, 16 points and 7 assists in the second game. Only three turnovers total. Right? If his assist to turnover ratio is 14-3 in this series, then he'll be fine. Promise. Okay. But Miles Turner, are the Thunder going to switch smalls onto him tonight? I think they will, because I think they're pretty content with the Pacers, stopping their offense to give Miles Turner a post touch. I think they're totally fine with that, especially when, our guy Alex Caruso, and I do say our guy because that dude's awesome. I freaking love Alex Caruso. The Thunder were cool with putting him on Jokic, and he did a pretty good job. So I think they're going to be okay with Lou Dort and Alex Caruso and Cason Wallace being switched onto Miles Turner, and they'll be totally fine with the Pacers posting him up. Okay, now look, the Pacers shouldn't run their offense through Miles Turner on the block, but they should take advantage of that mismatch if they get it from time to time. And here's the thing that I'm really going to be paying attention to, because everyone plays hard whenever they have the ball. They do. Everyone plays hard when they have the ball. There's excitement. There's intensity. There are moments, though, where the Pacers will look off Miles Turner when he has a switch that he feels like he can post up. His reaction, not always the best. And I get it. But this is the NBA Finals. If they don't throw him the ball on the block, he's got to grab the offensive rebound. There is no reason for Lou Dort or Alex Caruso or Cason Wallace or any of those guys to grab a rebound if they're defending Miles Turner. Miles Turner should grab every single one of those. He needs to pull a Mitchell Robinson. He needs to take the smaller defender, shove them underneath the basket, and grab the offensive rebound and then put it back up on the glass. Like, it is going to be so important for him to find a way to score when the Thunder switch, whether that's by posting up and hitting a little turnaround that he really likes to take. Maybe it's him grabbing an offensive rebound and then just laying it back up and in. Like, he has to be more than just a catch and shoot three guy. He has to be able to score in other ways, because getting easy buckets against this Thunder defense is near impossible. And him on the block against a Thunder guard should be one of the easier buckets that they can get. Or Miles Turner grabbing an offensive rebound should be one of the easier buckets that they can get. Defensively, I just need the guy to survive, which is an incredibly low bar for a guy like Miles Turner, who is a pretty solid defender. I just think this is a tough matchup for him in this series. I don't think he can defend Chet Holmgren. The good news, the Thunder don't really run plays for Chet Holmgren. I'm sure they'll attack Miles Turner with switches, but that's a pretty normal thing. You know, like every center gets attacked with switches. Like that's not really a big deal. I'll feel much better when he's defending, Isaiah Hartenstein. I think that's really the only guy that the Pacers look at the roster like, yeah, like we're cool with Miles Turner guarding him. And this is a series that could be decided by Miles Turner's ability to stay on the floor when Isaiah Hartenstein is on the bench. Miles Turner is the only guy on this Pacers roster who can consistently protect the rim, which is so important because the Thunder score at the rim a lot. Okay, they were 9th in the NBA in paint points per game during the regular season at just over 50 a game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the NBA in drives to the rim. When Miles Turner is on the bench, the Thunder are going to lick their chops, and they're just going to all sprint to the rim. They are, because the Pacers just aren't going to have anyone in to really deter them from taking these layups. Love Obi Toppin. Not like a super great rim protector. And I do think that we're going to see Obi Toppin minutes where he's playing at the 5. But Miles Turner, he's the only guy who can defend the rim on this team. And because of that, the Pacers need him to stay on the floor as much as possible, right? And his ability to defend Chet Holmgren is going to dictate whether or not they can keep Miles Turner on the floor or not. If he can't, we're going to be seeing a lot of Obi Toppin. And I like Obi Toppin. I think that in the minutes where Obi Toppin's playing center, I think the Pacers offense is going to be really good because there's going to be a lot of shooting. There's going to be even more speed. It's going to be great. But the defense will suffer. And for me, that is still the biggest thing in this series. How do the Pacers go about getting stops? And I think it's going to be so much easier for them to find a way to get stops when Miles Turner's on the floor, because he can actually provide some protection at the rim, right? Like, that is where the Thunder want to go. They're a good three-point shooting team, but they don't take a ton. They want to get to the rim. And you need Miles Turner there to kind of help push people out. And, he's got to stay out of foul trouble as well. That's something else that we can touch on a little bit here. But when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I've got one more question to get to, and it is about this topic. It's about this Pacers defense, which is so underrated, right? The sixth best defense in the NBA if you go by net rating, and over the course of their final 57 games, okay, when they kind of turned it around after that 10-15 start. This is a very good defensive team, but it is a tall order slowing down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. It is. But Coach Carlisle he's done something in his coaching career that gives me some confidence that he's going to be able to put together some sort of defense to maybe, just maybe, slow Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren down just a little bit. I'll tell you what that thing is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, hop in the chat to be part of the conversation. Maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Maybe you're watching on Twitter or X, as the cool kids call it now. You can follow me there at __ Jonathan Smith, and you can watch the live stream there as well. I think there's a way to comment there, but I don't think there's a way for me to like respond directly in the chat there. So if you want to do that, YouTube is the best place to do that. And the best place for the Pacers to win tonight would be Oklahoma City, and it's only going to happen if they guard, right? This is the most important aspect of the game tonight, and it's the most important aspect of the series. How do they go about slowing down this incredibly tough and resilient and skilled duo of Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this year's, MVP? A guy who led the league in scoring as well. Like, this dude is just stacking up all the accolades this year. And I am so intrigued to kind of see how they try to do it. And the fact that Rick Carlisle, earlier in his coaching career, was able to put together a defense in the NBA Finals to kind of help slow down Dwayne Wade and LeBron James and Chris Bosh. I would argue all three of those guys are better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. Gives me confidence that Coach Carlisle is going to figure out some sort of way to slow down this elite Thunder offense, because there's a lot of talk about the Thunder and the defense and all those things, but the offense is really good too, and all their offense isn't generated off of turnovers. The way, like, with how much people talk about this Thunder defense and turnovers and all those things, like, yes, It's a big part of who they are. But they're really good in the half court as well because they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. And I don't know how the Pacers are going to go about slowing down those guys. Are they going to double team one of them? Is he going to sag the defense, or are they going to, sag in a little bit and get late contests to shooters? I don't know. But this is where we're going to see Coach Carlisle's biggest impact. I firmly believe that the Pacers offense will figure itself out. I don't really think it matters what kind of defense the Thunder play. Like the Pacers offense is so good that I just expect for them to find a way to score because they're just that good on that side of the basketball. And when it comes to the defense, though, like this is where we're really going to see Coach Carlisle's impact. This is where we're going to see his ability to scheme and prepare and make adjustments and just be one of the best basketball coaches in the NBA. It is going to be on that end of the floor because offensively, I think they're going to have answers for whatever the Thunder throw at them. It's the defense that's concerning, and it's ultimately why I think the Pacers are going to lose the series. I just don't think that they have the right defenders. Like you can be a good defender, but be the wrong defender for somebody. For example, before Game 6 against the Knicks, Andrew Nembhard, very good defender, just not the right defender for Jalen Brunson stylistically. And stylistically, I don't think that the Pacers have the right defenders for Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like Aaron E. Smith doesn't really have the size to deal with Jalen Williams, Andrew Nembhard. Like imagine guarding Jalen Brunson, except Jalen Brunson's 6'6". Like that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like that, it's just going to be brutal. And so I don't know what they're going to do, but I do think that we're going to see them play some zone at some point. Maybe not in Game 1, but I do think at some point during the series we'll see it. The Pacers played the 11th most zone of any team in the NBA. It's a lot. Like that's a pretty, decent chunk. We also saw the Nuggets throw some zone at the Thunder during their series. It gave the Thunder some issues early on, but as the series progressed, they figured it out because they have great players. So I do think we'll see the Pacers play some zone, and I'm interested to kind of see how they help whoever is defending Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, are they going to stay home, or are they going to try to make the Lou Dorts and Alex Caruso's of the world beat them? That is really the question, and it's going to be fascinating. The Pacers, they've had 5 days to get ready, not only for this defense, but also for this offense. And it'll be very interesting to see how they go about dealing with the Thunder. Who wins tonight? Who wins Game 1? I think the Thunder win Game 1, but I do think that the Pacers cover that 9-point line, which is way too many points. I'm interested to see how each team kind of reacts to the opposing team's style. Because sure, you can practice and prepare for it all you want, but it's just your scout team isn't going to run it as well as the real team that you're going to play tonight. The Thunder haven't faced an offense like the Pacers. The Grizzlies ran their offense through John Morant, and then he got hurt, and then they ran it through Desmond Bain. The Nuggets ran their offense through Jokic, and when he wasn't on the floor, their offense was terrible. The Timberwolves ran their offense through Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, and it didn't work out very well for them. And yes, the Pacers run their offense through Tyrese Halliburton, but everyone is involved, right? He doesn't pound the air out of the basketball like a lot of those other guys that I listed have a tendency to do. They move the ball a ton. They actually run plays. It's amazing. The Thunder are actually going to have to defend sets and off-ball screens and all these different things. It's not just let's set a high ball screen for our best player, then figure it out from there. So that'll be a slight adjustment for the Thunder. They haven't seen a team that pressures the basketball the way that the Pacers do. How do the Thunder deal with that? Yes, they have capable guards who can bring the basketball to the floor. But Kaysen Wallace isn't a point guard. Alex Caruso's not a point guard. Lou Dort's not a point guard. Jalen Williams isn't a point guard. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's he's not a point guard. Speaking of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's going to bring the ball up the most, and he can do that. He's got a really good handle. And he is their offense a lot of the time. But dealing with pressure, 94 feet, that can bother some players if they're not used to it, and the Thunder aren't. They were pressed the least amount of any team in the NBA this year. And it's because they have multiple options in terms of guys who can bring the ball up the floor. But the Pacers are still going to press because that's part of who they are. And I would press them. I love the idea of the Thunder repeatedly having possessions where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is bringing the ball up the floor. He gets hounded the entire way up the floor, and then they never make a pass. It's just him trying to dribble into his 12-foot pull-up jumper. I love the idea of that. For the Pacers, they haven't seen a defense like this. This is one of the best defenses we've seen in the history of the NBA. Okay, they haven't played a defensive-oriented team all playoffs, right? The Bucks didn't have a stout defense in that first round. The Cavaliers' defense was good, right? But they were more known for having the best offense in the NBA during the regular season. The Knicks were an offensive-minded team, right? This is the first time the Pacers are playing a team that is more about their defense than their offense. And part of that is because of just how many great defenders the Thunder have. This is also the first time in the playoffs that the Pacers are playing a team that have a legitimately good option to put on Tyrese Halliburton. More importantly, the Thunder have 3. They do. They have 3. The Bucks didn't. The Bucks were like, here's AJ Green. Oh, that didn't go very well. Here's Gary Trent Jr. Oh, that didn't go very well. Here's Kyle Kuzma. And none of it worked. The Bucks just didn't have the personnel needed to deal with Tyrese Halliburton. Against the Cavaliers, the Cavaliers put, it was a lot of Max Strus. Max Strus was big, but he couldn't really stay in front of Halliburton. They also switched really easily, and he got Jared Allen isolated a whole bunch. Mikal Bridges didn't really bother Halliburton at all in that Knicks series. In Game 6, they put OG Anunoby on him. That didn't work because then Siakam had a mismatch. So, the Knicks didn't really have the right defenders to maybe slow down Halliburton and Siakam. The Thunder do. Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, or Cason Wallace, all 3 of those guys are going to bother Tyrese Halliburton because all 3 of them are excellent defenders. Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren or Isaiah Hartenstein, all 3 of those guys are all going to be significantly tougher matchups for Siakam than Karl Anthony Towns or Mikal Bridges were. Okay, so the Thunder have real options to put on those guys. In addition to it, the Thunder don't have anyone for the Pacers to pick on. Against the Bucks, the Pacers just went at Brook Lopez to a point where he couldn't be played anymore. They went at AJ Green repeatedly. They did. They went at Damian Lillard before he got hurt. They had so many defensive liabilities to pick at. The Thunder don't have that. Against the Cavaliers, who'd the Pacers pick on? Darius Garland. They get him switched onto Siakam, and he'd post up. They got Donovan Mitchell switched onto Siakam. He would post up. They got Jared Allen switched onto Tyrese Halliburton. He would go by him, and it usually led to a good look. Right? Against the Knicks, the Pacers ran all their offense directly at Karl Anthony Towns or Jalen Brunson. The Thunder do not have a guy like that. When Isaiah Hartenstein's on the floor, they'll probably target him. Yeah, but Isaiah Hartenstein's a better defender than all those guys I just listed for Cleveland and Milwaukee and the Knicks. He is. And so, I don't mind Halliburton getting him in a switch, but, it's not my favorite thing ever, So they'll probably pick on him. That's really the only guy that you feel somewhat comfortable with. They'll probably target Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well, but that's not really by choice. It's just because the other 3 defenders they have on the floor are awesome. And, picking to go at Isaiah Hartenstein or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on offense, it's like clogging the toilet at your girlfriend's house early on in your relationship. You can leave it, and that you'll leave, and they'll eventually find it. And, you're just going to think about it the whole time, and it's going to bother you. And then, she may text you, and that's not going to be very fun. But, that you're going to see her again. And, that's not going to be a fun conversation. It's going to be very awkward. You could also tell her, hey, I just clogged your toilet. But that's embarrassing. Both options are terrible. Both paths lead to nowhere good. And that's kind of what it feels like picking between Isaiah Hartenstein and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in terms of who you want to go at. It's tough, and like there's some role players for the Thunder who you might pick on a little bit. Like maybe you try to get Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins switched on to Pascal Siakam. If Jalen Williams or Kenrich Williams play minutes at the 5, then like you can try to get those guys switched on to Halliburton or Nembhard or whoever. But if either one of those guys plays, like it's not going to be for more than 10 minutes. Like you might get 12 minutes of Aaron Wiggins. You might get 14 minutes of Isaiah Joe. Like that's really it. And those guys can guard. Like they're going to make things tough on you. So as just a pure basketball fan, I can't wait to see the battle on that end of the floor. The Pacers are undefeated in game ones throughout these playoffs. The Thunder are not. They lost game 1 at home to the Denver Nuggets. So maybe, just maybe, the Pacers are able to go in there and take game 1. I don't think it's going to happen. I like the Thunder to win, but I do think that the Pacers cover that 9-point spread. If you want another bet, I like the Andrew Nembhard over. I believe it is 11.5 because that just seems like a good number for him. And I think he's going to have the ball a lot, or at least a lot more than normal. And so I think that's going to open up a window for him to score a little bit more. He's probably going to have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on him. It'll be him or Nesmith, who's having to deal with SGA. So we'll see. I'm very intrigued to kind of see how that goes. Can I get, there we go, more props? Let me see what the official number is here on Andrew Nembhard. It is not popping up. Come on now. Really? But here we go. Andrew Nembhard to score 10 points is minus 192. So yeah, so his over-under is probably somewhere around 11.5 or so. I would honestly bet him to score 15 or more. That should get you plus money. It is plus, where'd he go? He's plus 240 to score 15 points. I would probably bet that. It gets you plus money. I think it's very likely to happen just because he's going to have the ball more. But we'll have to wait and see. Tip-off is at 8:30, which I hate. I want it to be at like 7. But that's obviously not going to happen. So game tonight, 8:30. Can't wait. I just hope we get a good series. I hope we get 7 games of this because I think that this series is going to be fascinating. And I know that our guy, or I know that the Pacers are big-time underdogs, but they've been underdogs in like every series except for the series against Milwaukee. And they found a way to figure it out. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they figured it out one more time. So NBA Finals start tonight. I can't freaking wait. Thank you for tuning into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. We had a lot of fun today. We gave away Mash Bash tickets. We're going to give away more on the Dan Dockett Show. Like we're giving some away in the noon hour, the 1 o'clock hour, and the 2 o'clock hour. We also have Holiday World tickets to give away as well. So a lot of giveaways coming up on the Dan Dockett Show. 2 great guests, Tim Legler at 1, Frank Isola at 2:30. Loaded day on the Dan Dockett Show to get you ready for game 1 tonight. So don't turn that dial. Stay right here, 14:30. I will talk to you tomorrow from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next.